Welcome to another episode of Penetrate Radio. I am your host, Lucy Baldwin, and today I'm here with Brenda Fredericks, who is a dear friend of mine. I met her working in the Sleepover Mystery School, and she was like our mystery school mom, mystery school Venusian goddess.
That.
Yeah, you're a coach. You've been in the world of spiritual development forever. Brenda has her own podcast about desire, extremely aligned. What is your normal introductory? Like, what would you say you do, Brenda? I'm not doing it justice.
You're doing great. I love it. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to be here with you today, Lucy. Oh my goodness. And it's so funny to be a guest instead of the host today. I do so many things. I'm a coach. I work with women. I basically help women be more honest with themselves and each other and their relationships. Like, how do you truly be yourself? I do family constellations. I have a podcast. I teach a movement practice once a month. I really just do a lot of things. I'm a manifesting generator in human design. But everything that I do, because I'm like, wow, I do so many things. Everything that I do brings people back to themselves, back to their true self. And everything is rooted in embodiment.
Brenda, am I correct in remembering that you have like a lot of Virgo in your chart?
I am a very special Virgo. So I am Virgo sun, moon, rising. I have like 8 houses in Virgo, all in my first, 8 planets in Virgo, all in my first house. I have multiple Virgo stelliums. I had an astrologer once tell me that there should be a chapter in a book about me, but nobody's written it yet.
Well, let's get to work.
I did once meet somebody else who was a triple Virgo, sun, moon, rising. We were both like, oh my God. And then we were like, we can never meet again because it's like too extreme.
Well, I just
And vicariously through me, I have enough for both of us.
Yeah. Well, I do have Venus in Virgo. So I do think it's interesting because I always see you as such a Venusian emanation. And so it makes sense because you're so Virgoan that my Virgo Venus sees you and is like, ah, yes, this is what is true for me.
I love that.
But we talk about existential kink a lot on this podcast. But you were actually part of the community that I would say was the precursor where the EK philosophy came out of. And so I want you to talk to us about that. But before that, I actually want to hear about where you started on your spiritual journey.
That's such a great question. Oh my goodness. I've been at this spiritual journey thing for quite a while, like honestly going on 2 decades. It started out, honestly, the first time I ever touched anything spiritual was right after my father died. And I started getting into other dimensions and life after death. That was the very beginning. And then I got into yoga and I started opening up my body. But that was like the precursor. That was my pre-spiritual journey. But my real spiritual journey started when I was probably about 38. So I'm going to be 58 this year. So that's really going on 20 years ago. I was married. I had a beautiful house in the suburbs in New York. I had my 2 kids. I had a great career. We had cars and vacations, a couple of pets. Like we really had all the things on paper. And I was happy. I loved him. We got married when I was very young. And I just felt this tap on my shoulder. All of a sudden, I just felt this tap on my shoulder. Like even when I talk about it, I can actually feel the tap. Like it was so visceral. And I was like, what the hell is that? And I tried to ignore it, but it would not go away the way these persistent calls are. And I finally just started investigating what is this thing? And I had no idea what this was, but it was so real. It was a calling for more. There's something more for you in this life. And which was very confusing because I was very happy with my life. I had a career that I loved. I taught 6th grade in a middle school. I loved my life. I loved my suburban life. I loved putting my crock pots up in the morning and reading to my kids at night. So this calling for more and this like awakening in all the areas and this like sexually desiring wake up and this spiritual wake up and this curiosity for life and what else is out there was very confusing for me. So that's how I ended up at the School of Womanly Arts, Mama Gina, where I started exploring pleasure and desire and embodiment and what it means to love yourself and love your body, which was an unheard of quality for me because I was conditioned to believe, like so many women are, that there's something wrong with our bodies. And I thought my pussy was like complex and weird and this weird thing, even though she brought me pleasure And she birthed me the most amazing humans. Still, I was like, this thing is ugly. I did not understand what a man would be possibly interested in it for, which was quite shocking, right? I look back and I'm like, wow. And I remember Mama Gina at the time, this was a long time ago, saying there are stages of learning to love your body. And you go from disgust through all of these stages that she talked about where you actually can get to rapture. And I got there. Now I work with women on this. I'm like, my God, this is the portal to another universe. So I started studying inside of that field, which brought me to other areas as well, is appreciating men. I had been brought up, not purposely, nobody taught me to criticize men, but you pick up from the women around you in your lineage. And I was quite critical of men, very critical. I had a strong perfectionist pattern. And so I could do it the best way, and nobody could even come close to doing it as good as me, especially my husband. What was wrong with him? And there's so many dynamics that come out of that. So I learned to appreciate men, and I learned to stop criticizing and stop barking orders. Now, of course, this has spiraled over many years. It's not like my critical pattern never comes out now. If you're talking about shadow, yeah, that comes out. It does. I'm like always keeping that in check. So the other thing I started really learning about was how to ride the ups and downs of life, because we're oriented in our world that everything's a problem and you're either great or terrible. Like everything is these peak experiences. And I really didn't know how to be honest with myself and what was really happening for me and what happens when I'm having feelings or going down. And now I'm just like the seasons. I'm like always up and down, and I know how to work with myself and take care of myself in all the locations when I'm up and feeling great and out, or if I'm like down and don't want to go out at all. Like there's juice in all of that for me now, and I just ride it because I'm in approval of it, because I understand how my body actually works, where I had no idea of that before. So these are all the core pieces of my spiritual journey. And all of these things are so cyclical. Like everything that I talked about just now, I probably learned in the first year, but I revisited them every year. You just revisit them. And every time you revisit something like this in the spiral, you learn something new, and you're at a different starting point. So, you just keep going deeper. And I always thought, yeah, as soon as I take this course or work with this coach, I'm going to be done. I'm good. And I was like, oh, there's always another door. There's always another layer to yourself. And it's quite exciting, like to understand. Like I had a teacher who said, my role and my excitement in this life is to understand how I tick, how I work. And so I think that's probably been the biggest gift in my journey, is understanding how I actually work. And a little fun fact for listeners that I learned is knowing how I work is like the magic sauce for everything, because then you can teach your partner about you and how you work, and then you can have more of what you want in your life. So that's the short version.
Amazing. So this is okay. I love this, and I love that you gave this background. And I have a daughter in 6th grade, so I just, yeah. And I love her teacher, by the way.
I loved it. Loved it.
It is a really sweet age. So so you came into One Taste. Tell me about that. How did you discover One Taste?
Great. So I was in School of Womanly Arts, which is Mama Gina. Those are used interchangeably. And I was in that for a few years, and there was a guest speaker once in one of the courses. We were in this big auditorium, and Nicole Daedone came, who was the founder of One Taste. And she spoke on stage, and I was honed in on her, my God, because she talked about freedom in sexuality in a way that I had never heard of before. And I was like, I don't know what this is that she's talking about. Now, I was still married at the time, and it was very clear that it wasn't the right time. This was the spring of 2012. I was very clear, I want that, and now is not the time. So later in 2012 is when my marriage exploded. We had Hurricane Sandy in New York. My house was 1/3 destroyed by that hurricane. And that was it. I went into a really huge down after that because my house was destroyed. We separated during the hurricane. I mean, it was really madness. It was just like crazy in our patterns madness is what it was. So we split up that winter, and then that next spring is when I got into One Taste and started learning the practice of orgasmic meditation, which really took me to the next level. And I got super involved in that community. And it just took everything that I learned with Mama Gina and just brought it to a new place and different perspectives. And I got to work with this stew that's inside of me and have a lot of fun. I had a great time.
If you could distill down key teachings of One Taste to just like, maybe it's like 1 or 3 like of the kind of core teachings, like what was it really about?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's books written on this, books and podcasts and blogs and all of that. You know, one of the big things I learned about from One Taste is embodiment and being in my body. I remember one time hearing this teaching about pain, physical pain in your body is just a sensation. And one of the things that you do in the practice of orgasmic meditation at the very end is you give a frame to your partner that you owned with. It's a partnered practice. And so what I learned was all these sensations in my body that we put value judgments on them. And we say, we're nervous, we're anxious. Everyone's anxious these days, my goodness, right? So I was nervous before this podcast. But what I learned through orgasmic meditation was instead of interpreting the sensations, can we just name them at the physical level? And that was a game changer for me, because once I started doing that and looking at things at more of a value neutral level, then it actually translated into my life. I stopped, I should say, interpreting everything and putting a twist on it that made it actually more difficult for me. So that's a huge piece, is just understanding sensation, which is very primal and very beautiful. So that was a huge thing. And that's just a huge game changer. Another huge thing that I learned through OM was learning my true yes and no. I mean, this is huge. And this is what I work with so many of my clients on, because as women, we do not know how to say no. And one of the things in the OM practice, very basic level, somebody asks you, do you want to OM? And you want to say no, you don't want to OM with this person, right? But it's very hard for women to say no. So just learning how to actually say no is extremely sensational, because we start noticing all the times that we've said yes to all the things that we don't want to do, which was actually a huge problem for me in my marriage, in my life. That's why I was exhausted and drained and overwhelmed. Probably the something more for me was being more honest with myself about what is it that I want to do in my life and what do I and not, because otherwise we're just constantly saying yes to ourselves and then feeling exhausted and drained. I mean, that you just hear that with women all the time. So unless you know your no, how can you possibly know or trust your yes? And that was a game changer for me. So I started bringing that into my home. So at the time, my husband had left at the time, so it was me and my kids at home. And I had gone from being like controlly. I wasn't like a super helicopter mom, but I was also just like kind of controlly and perfectionistic. And I started changing the way I spoke to my kids at home. Instead of saying, for example, we're going to grandma's today. We're going to grandma's today, and it's going to be great. And these are all the reasons that it's going to be great. And grandma's going to give you dessert. She'll probably give you $20. Instead of like manipulating them into wanting to go to grandma's, I started saying things like, grandma invited us over today. Do you want to go? Like super pristine and clean. And then at first they were like, what's going on here? You know, teenagers, they're suspicious of everything. And they started saying yes or no. And I started accepting their authentic yes or no. So if they said, no, I don't want to go, I said, okay, great. I started respecting their no because I started respecting my own no. So it just like melted away any tension in the house. They were like, we don't know what's happening to mom, but this is going really great, which actually made them want to go to grandma's with me.
Yep.
So these are just some of the things that I learned in One Taste. And I mean, from all of these things, learning my true yes and no, it rippled into my finances. It rippled into my sexuality. It rippled into my relationships and my family. It's been beautiful. The lessons have been so forthcoming. And I learned so much that now I have my own podcast on desire. So the gifts have been Plenty.
Yeah. I was just thinking to ask you about your podcast about desire, because that was so you totally read my mind there. And also I just want to say that you can see how this, especially the first thing that you talked about, sensation as sensation and not having to label it. The language I use around that is like, make a story, write a story
Exactly.
about it, right? And you can see how like EK, I mean, and there were more pieces of Om that EK came out of, but you can see how that is like a foundational piece of like the existential kink philosophy and the existential kink practice. And another thing that I know was part of Om that I just want to mention is this idea of like getting off on every stroke, like
That is
finding
the
pleasure.
best.
It really is like taking that concept of experiencing the sensation as it is and not having to write a story about it, but then allowing yourself to enjoy it, being able to get off on it, finding pleasure in whatever the raw sensation is. And so if you can really like let go, shed all the mental junk, it's like the sensation oftentimes can feel really good. I had a really profound experience with this in labor, which I'll just tell the story quickly and then we get back to you. It was my fourth baby. I had done 3 natural births. Actually, the first one wasn't technically natural because they induced me. So I don't think that counts as natural, but I didn't have any pain help. And then I had 2 home births. So I had done birth without any pain help. And for my fourth birth, but my third baby was over 10 pounds. And after that birth, I really don't need to do this to myself anymore. I'm going to get an epidural. So fourth baby, I was at Yale. I decided to get an epidural. They had a really hard time giving me the epidural. Yale is a teaching hospital, so they had like a student giving me the epidural, and they couldn't get it in. So my labor was happening relatively fast because it was my fourth baby. It still took hours, but it was relatively fast. So when you're getting the epidural, you're like you have to like curl up, and you're pregnant. And I was in that transition, like late stage labor at this point. We didn't really know. Like I started that, I was maybe like 5 or 6 centimeters dilated. And it took them almost an hour to get the epidural in. So by the time they got it in, I was literally ready to deliver the baby, like right then. And so I was like 9.5 centimeters. So I went through the whole labor, like transition period, like the hardest part of labor, curled up in a ball and without the epidural. It was a total waste. But in that experience, because you have to hold still. It was like my spine was on the line. So I was like really committed to holding still in this position while I was in this transition phase of labor. It was late stage labor. And so when the contractions, so in my previous labor, I had tried really hard to surrender and do this. I was really deep in the EK world at this time and just like trying to feel it as pleasure. I'm trying to get off on the labor and whatever. I hear about these like ecstatic labors that people have. And it ended up being like really, really horrible because I wasn't doing it right. Whatever it was that I was trying to convince myself to enjoy it, that was not the way. But in this situation, I really just went so deep into the feeling. Like I put my whole attention into that sensation. And it is like the most intense sensation in the world, maybe. And I had that click of, it's the intensity that it makes it so hard. It's not the sensation. It's the intent. In that moment, it was like I could feel the texture of the sharpness was just the pure intensity of sensation. Anyway, so that's how my framework for it is like what it means to me.
I love that. That's a great story. I think you illustrated it perfectly. I could really feel it when you said like the intensity and all the textured layers. I was like, oh, I know what you mean. And just like getting off on the stroke and being in approval. And it reminds me of when you have a really good cry and it just feels so good. Like it just feels so good. Or you like let out your anger and it just feels so good because we have this idea that these things are quote bad or we shouldn't feel them. But when you let them out or you're in approval of it, right? It just feels so good.
Yeah. And I think this speaks to what you're saying. It's like, because I had to be curled up in a ball, there was this like containment. There was no escape. Like, because my other labors, it's like you're all loose and trying to shake it I don't know, just like move or do something, or just there's this looseness to it, which is good. You want to be loose, but the energy is really going everywhere. And because I had to curl up into a ball, I had no fucking choice but to like just feel it all the way. Like
Feel
there
it.
was no other way. It was, I had to just dive into it. It's like right there.
That's gorgeous. And that's another big teaching from Om and One Taste as well, is containment, and how much the feminine really needs containment. We actually want containment, and your body actually provided it for you, or the situation provided it for you in that moment. We want to feel contained. It actually feels good to feel limits, so we can go to the edges of those limits with all of our chaos and beauty and wildness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love containers. You know, Virgos, of course, we love containers as well.
Yeah, and that's what Om is, right? It's like you have such specific confines within the practice. It's like very contained, and within that, there's so much expansion.
Exactly. Do you want me to say what Om is for anyone listening who might not
Yeah,
know what we're talking about?
yeah, please.
Yeah. I mean, just for the context of our conversation. So it's a partnered practice where one person strokes the clitoris of another person's pussy for 15 minutes. And I say one person or the other person instead of man and woman, but really the practice is a clitoris stroking practice. So it's for 15 minutes, and there's very specific steps that you go through. So it's very structured.
Exactly. Exactly. And so within that, this is like what it reminds me of the idea of a fractal. Like within every inch, there's infinite space if you just like keep going in and in and in deeper. And the same thing with time. It's like within a second, there are infinite moments. With any
Totally.
amount of time, there's just infinity within it. And so it is this containment creates the potential for expanding just in different directions, but it almost makes it, in a sense, easier to expand because the limits give you, I'm having a hard time articulating it,
Safety.
like
I think they give us safety. Is that what you were thinking of? For me, it
safety
is.
and also like maybe direction.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe
it's like,
maybe
this
both
is
of
where
those.
you can go with this.
Exactly. And really, ultimately, which is another huge thing I learned in my spiritual journey, is boundaries. Like creating your own limits of what you're available for, which is tremendous. And if we're talking about, like I was talking about our kids before, like learning to have boundaries and putting boundaries in place at home, where it's not like I never had any boundaries, but not really. They were very loosey-goosey. Actually just makes children feel safer, makes yourself feel safer. You feel better inside of a relationship if you know what the other person's limits are. And then you can have more fun inside of that container.
Yeah. I mean, this is so true. This is something I've learned as a parent is like, if you give your kids boundaries, but then you don't enforce them, they get confused. It actually
Yeah,
doesn't serve them for you to be like, oh, that rule, well, you can break it this time. Because then they're like, wait, so is it a rule? Like they need you to structure and hold the boundaries.
totally. And it's hard. That's a hard thing to do when you might be tired or whatever your reasons are to not uphold the boundary. They get confused. So it's really important to be nourished and be well resourced so you can show up for your kids in that way. And look, we're human. It doesn't always work out that way. Believe
So
me, I
true.
know.
So true. But that, the boundaries thing really goes back to what you were saying about the knowing your yeses and nos too.
Huge. It's so huge. Catherine and I, my co-host, we talk about that all the time. I feel like so many of our episodes come back to knowing your true yes and no. Like you could just spend years just working on that and noticing where you cross your own boundary. Oh my God. Because if you're doing it with, somebody just saying, oh, would you like sweetener in your coffee? You want some honey in your coffee? And you say no because you don't want to bother them to get the honey. Well, where else in your life are you doing that? I can pretty much say that if you're not asking for honey in your coffee, you are not asking for what you want in sex, and then you hate your husband. So whose fault is that?
I love how you jumped right. I thought you were going to say like in bigger ways in your life, but then you went right to sex.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so funny. Now, my husband has a real hard time imposing on people.
Mm,
He hates imposing on people. It's like pathological.
mm. That's
And
so.
he's been working on like because I've been calling it out. We've been together for 10 years, and so I'm definitely like, you got to just get over it. Even like his parents, he has no problem imposing on me at all. He doesn't apply to me, obviously. I mean, our marriage wouldn't work if it applied to me.
Yeah.
But with his parents, it's like, dude, they want to help. They really want to help you. Like, let them have the pleasure and the joy of helping you.
I know. It's really true. When we don't give, we don't receive, we're really denying somebody else the pleasure of giving. And it's so great to give. But those things are so deeply seated, and we all have them in our own way. Like we all have, like I mentioned, my critical pattern. Like it's so hard. Like these things that are just, that come from, they're ours, they live in our body, but they're also not ours. Meaning they're in your lineage, they're in your cells, they're in your body. So these are things that are passed down, not only like literally in your cells, but through the environment that you grew up in. And they're just such, can I curse? They're such motherfuckers to work with because they feel so true. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to put somebody out. Like when I hear the voices of criticism in my head for my partner, for men, that sounds real. I could explain to you why these things are real. No, this is real. This is what he's doing wrong. But it's like, it's very skewed. It's like a mismessage, if I have the word, in my own voice. So it's like, I believe it, but now I know better. Mm-hmm. So I feel for your husband. And if he's working on it, then that's amazing, because that's the best that we could do, is work on things.
Yeah, he is. I'm going back to the sex thing though.
Yeah.
Because I think this is actually important, because in my experience, like when somebody that I'm in a sexual relationship with, hypothetically, if they're like, dude, this is what I want, nothing turns me on more.
Totally.
Than like somebody being like, this is what I want, like do this for me. Right. So it's just by not asking for what you want, especially in the bedroom, you like, that is the most poignant example. Like you're truly depriving somebody of the pleasure, like the pleasure of getting to give that to you.
Totally. And yourself.
Yeah.
Because you might actually get it, which is so vulnerable.
I know it is. But in my experience, in my sexual relationships, it's like, we're turned on by each other's pleasure. So of course, like you asking for what you want and then me giving it to you, you're just amplifying the pleasure that everybody gets to have.
Totally. It's so great. And it's such a deep practice in asking for what you want in the coffee shop or the bedroom or in relationship, or asking for help. That's another really big one, right? Just asking for help. People want to help us, but we deny ourselves a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I do think this is maybe a good segue into, if you tell me why you started a podcast about desire.
Oh, this is such a great question. So this is responsive desire. So my co-host, Catherine, one day we were friends. I knew her through One Taste. And she one day asked me, do you want to talk about desire with me in public? And I was like, what? But I felt an immediate yes. So this was back in the pandemic. This was in 2020 when we had Clubhouse. When Clubhouse was new, I don't know. It was like a radio app, right? There was no recording at the time. I think you can record now on Clubhouse. So we were like, okay, great. This Monday, we picked a day, Monday at 3:00, we went on and we had a little radio show. We called it Desire Hour. And we had such a good time that I was like, let's do it again. Let's do it next Monday at 3. So that just started us talking about desire. And we had people on and we had followers listening, and it was so much fun. And then one day, Catherine said to me, now we had been like developing our sisterhood and our friendship during this time too, which was really a beautiful gift. She said to me, the world is missing out. And I was like, oh my God, I know what you're talking about. Because we had these 2 guests on this one particular day, and it was so gorgeous. Like we just got like so into the desire. Those moments where it feels like soft honey in the room, and you're like, oh my God, everyone needs to know this. But it wasn't recorded. So we were like, wow, people are missing out. I think that we need to actually turn this into a recorded podcast. So we were like, great. So we stopped our radio show and we started creating what is now the Desire is Medicine podcast. But then there was a hurricane that happened, moved, like life happened. But throughout that whole time, we had been meeting every Wednesday to just talk on the phone, ideally to talk about the podcast, but sometimes we were just crying or laughing or getting to know each other. But it turned out that year, which that turned out to be like a full year, like we just couldn't get it started, was actually really beautiful and a really strong foundation for the podcast because based on relationships, a lot of the things that we're talking about. So we started out and we actually just dropped episode 137. We're in our third season and we drop every week because she's a Capricorn.
And you're a Virgo.
I'm a Virgo. I'm
That's
a Virgo.
Power team.
It really is. I'm very, very feminine. So I would be like, let's skip a week or maybe we'll do every other. She's a Capricorn. I actually love that. It holds me to a really high standard. And the premise of our podcast is desire. And so desire isn't only about manifestation. It's about the journey that it takes you on when you follow a desire, which is a winding, wild path, right? And in that wild, winding path, you actually change and you transform and evolve into someone who on that path like learns all these skills, and you open this door and you learn that, you go down this rabbit hole and you learn this, to actually end up being the person who could have this thing that you said you wanted. And sometimes you don't even end up having it. We talk about that a lot, and I do believe that about desire, that it's not always about the manifestation. It's actually, if we get too attached to having the desire, I must have this desire, it actually blocks you from maybe something even better than you could possibly imagine. So
yes,
that's the 1-2 on desire. It's a fun path.
Yeah, this is something that Layla and I teach on a lot actually in our programs where we do it. It's a little like, I like to think of it as a bait and switch because that makes me feel naughty, but it is like, here's the thing that you want, but is it really the thing that you want or is it the feeling? What's the underlying like state that you're seeking?
Exactly.
It's an internal state that you're seeking, and you think that thing is going to get you to that internal state, but it's not about the thing.
It's really not about the thing. But yet the thing coming to you is an intuitive, magical, carrot that pulls you to this thing that you want, to become that person, to have that feeling. And you do grow along the way. And it's pretty amazing.
This reminds me, actually, I'm so glad you're here, Brenda, because I know a lot of people came out of One Taste. And one of them, another person who I follow, besides Carolyn, obviously, is Perry Chase.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard her talk about desire. And I think this came out of One Taste. So I want to ask you about it as like the fulfillment of, I'm not even sure, I'm not going to do justice to how she explains it, but it's something like that whatever's happening in the moment is desire. Like that is our desire.
Interesting. I don't know how Perry talks about it. I love Perry and I worked with her for a while. She's wonderful. The only thing I would say about that is that if a desire calls you, you're following it, then whether it or not, you're yes to the journey of following that desire. And so in the moment is the desire that you're having, the experience you're having on the path to the desire. That's the only thing that I think of when you say that. But I don't know how she talks about it in that way.
Yeah, I guess I've always seen it as a parallel way of saying what is one of the axioms of EK, which is having is evidence of wanting.
Yes.
So like the fact that it's here means that there is desire.
Oh, I see what you mean. Totally. And that's a tricky teaching, right? Having is evidence of wanting, because we're also saying that it's not about the having, right? But sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. And that's where we really can't get too involved as humans, because then we get our clutchy little graspy fingers on it. And we don't know. And this is where I personally just believe in a higher power, and that guides me along. And that I'm not in control of everything as a former CEO of the universe and control freak and perfectionistic, who get really attached to having it this way or having it that way. It's so much better. I've just released so much control and grasping to say, I really want this thing. And there's big things in my life that I want right now. And I don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. And I don't know if I'm going to ever have this thing, but I'm going to keep following it because it's such a deep calling inside of me. And that to me is self-love. Like when you're backing yourself in that way and you're going to follow this thing and get out of your own way to have the thing that you want.
Yeah, because desire it's an amazing guide system. It's
It
an
is.
amazing way to orient oneself. It's
Totally.
like you don't know what to do, follow your desire.
Absolutely. And I say my desires every day. Like literally before I get out of bed, I do 100 things in the morning. That's why I have to get up at 6:30 these days because I have so much to do in the morning. And one of the things I do is I pray in the morning before I even get out of bed and I say my desires, a couple of them. And so I'm always tuning into my desires. And then actually I have a ritual with my partner where we have a little closing out bedtime routine and we both say our desires then in addition to some other things. And so I'm just like so tapped into my desire because it's my compass. So if I ever don't know what I want to do, I just go back to my desires. It's actually much simpler. It's actually just a simpler way to live. It's like a container. It's like, oh, I have the container of my life based on my desires. I know what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah. I do think you are particularly in touch with yeah, you've been doing this work for 20 years. You're really in touch with sort of knowing what you desire. And I think there is a piece where a lot of people struggle to even know what they want. And
Yeah,
I also think there's a lot of what I call compensatory desire, where it's like, we think that we should want that. And so we actually convince ourselves that it is what we want. But really, it's that desire is a product of something that's actually out of out of tune within ourselves. It's like
totally.
a belief that we have. We could have a compensatory desire that stems from some belief about what we should be doing and what our identities should look like. As a mom, I should do X, Y, and Z. So I think I want to throw my child like an extravagant birthday party, but like I don't want to throw my child. You know what I mean? And so that's just a random example.
It's
But
a great example. Totally. Exactly. And sometimes we do have our compensatory desire along the way. Like if you're like, I want a filet mignon. I want to go to the fanciest restaurant in town and have the best steak ever known to man, right? But you don't have the money for it. So, okay, you go to the burger joint and you get a burger. And that's a pretty good burger. If you can enjoy that burger, but you hold on to that filet mignon desire, right? So it's not bad. It's just, sometimes we can't have the filet mignon or you won't, like you said, you won't give it to yourself. You don't want to spend that money or you don't want to go through the trouble of asking for it, whatever the thing is. So sometimes we do have our compensatory desires along the way. And that burger can be really delicious. And it also can have diminishing returns. Like I really wanted to go to Puerto Rico for a vacation, but I just went to the beach that's a mile away. And then it just kind of sucks. It's like, oh, you really wanted that thing and you could have given it to yourself, but you didn't, and it doesn't hit. But, if we're in approval of all of our experiences, then everything is a learning experience and you just gather information from it and then hopefully apply it to next time.
yeah. So, Brenda, I love that you mentioned how there's a couple things that you mentioned that remind me of this. You mentioned how you have a whole long list of things that you do every day.
I do.
And I can attest to, and I've always seen you as this like pinnacle of like self-care because when we were doing the mystery school, putting on these immersions, you were like, I have these things that I do every day and it's non-negotiable and I don't give a shit if I'm putting on a mystery school today because I'm doing my things. And I just felt like, wow, Brenda is so baller and just like so solid. And I don't know, I was always really impressed by that. And I'm curious if you'd be willing to share with us what those things are that you do.
Oh my God. Okay, I just dropped a reel about me having to get up at 6:30 in the morning because I have so much to do. But like the thing I'm doing is just like dancing in my living room. But it's true. So first of all, thank you. I received that. It's really like a beautiful evolution in my own life to receive that reflection because it wasn't always that way. But I've just found that, sometimes you wake up crunchy, right? I don't want to just go into my life. I need like 12 hours to get ready for my day, but I've condensed it into a few. So the first thing I do in the morning, well, before I even get out of bed, I am praying. I do a brag of gratitude and a desire. I get out of bed. I put my clothes on, I get my face in the sun. So I didn't even leave my bedroom yet. And I'm like outside. Oh, and I'm doing my lymphatic hops. So I'm doing my lymphatic hops. My face is in the sun. I'm breathing in the fresh air. And then I go in the kitchen. I get my water. I drink my water. And I do some little stretches. And then depending on how I feel, I will wash vegetables for green juice, depending on how bad I have to pee. I'll wash vegetables for green juice because my partner juices every morning. And then I'll, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth and all the bathroom business. And then I do yoga. So I have this beautiful playlist and I do yoga every morning. And it used to be like a whole thing and it was 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. It's had many cycles. I've been doing this for 2 decades every morning. And it's changed many times. It just changes to be more resonant with where I am in my life and what I want. And it's flexible. Like all of these things that I'm saying are extremely flexible. It's not like if I don't put my face in the sun, like nothing bad happens. Like it's really okay because we can take our perfectionistic patterns and our controlling and just put it into spiritual language. And it's still a perfectionistic pattern running us. It's a tricky one. So everything that I'm saying is flexible and changeable. So I'll drink my water, I'll do my yoga. And then once I do the yoga, I love my playlist and a song will come on and I'll just start dancing. I recently hurt my knee, so now I have physical therapy to do. So now I'm doing like physical therapy exercises in the morning. What else do I do? Sometimes I'll pull goddess cards. I love watering my plants. Oh, and I make myself a gorgeous breakfast every morning. So I make Spencer and I a beautiful breakfast and we usually like sit and talk and then I go for a walk. So I have a scheduled call with a friend every weekday and we do a tool together called spring cleaning. So we basically hold space for each other to like kind of get out whatever's happening for us while I take a walk. And then I come home and shower and start my day.
Wow.
I probably forgot some things, to be honest. It sounds like madness, but it's so flexible and changeable, and that's kind of the beauty of it. I have like a big toolbox of morning practices.
Yeah. So that call that you do every morning, is it with the same person every day?
It's with the same person. We started doing that in the pandemic. So it's been going on 6 years.
Wow.
Of this call every morning. And even that's changeable. Like it used to be at 9:15 every day. Now we worked it out. We check in the night before, set up a time, and sometimes we don't do it for whatever reason. And maybe I'll go on a walk that day on my own, or maybe I'll just skip the whole thing.
Wow. Yeah. Because we had a writing group for a little while.
Oh, yes.
Where we were writing most
That was
mornings.
amazing.
I want to do that again.
That was so great. Ritual is so beautiful. Like routine and ritual is so beautiful. And it is something I guess Virgos are really good at. And I think that it just brings you back closer to who you are and it taps you into your intuition and your desire. And that's a beautiful thing, right? So maybe do it in the afternoon, maybe do it in the morning or at night. Whatever works for you. But I love the writing. And that's another thing. I've also done writing practices in the morning. We didn't even talk about face creams, but that's another one.
Oh my gosh. Can I for a minute? Because I have chronically, like I'm a dry type. So my face always, I was struggling with like my face always feeling dry and my skin feeling like tight and just like, I was lathering castor oil on my skin multiple times a day, until recently. So I tried so many different, for years I just put like body lotion, like thick body lotion on my face. But I'm having to put it on multiple times a day because I'm actually just uncomfortable. And I've seen a lot of buzz about tallow. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. There's always some new trendy product. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bite. But then I finally was like, but what if that's the thing?
Ooh.
And I got the tallow and it works really well. It's actually working. Yeah, I put it on at night. And then when I wake up in the morning, I don't even, it's not.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is that why you look so glowy today?
Maybe my tallow is working.
I
Yeah.
love that. You reminded me also, first of all, I love that story. Second of all, you reminded me that I also have a nighttime ritual that I love. Now, I do not do this every day, but you reminded me when you said castor oil. So I heard that you could put castor oil in your belly button at night, right? So I don't always do this, but I did go through a time period where I was doing it every night, and it's really good for digestion. Like, you'll have a really good poop in the morning if you put castor oil in your belly button. And like, I'll rub like coconut oil on my body, and I'll put a candle on and do like a yoga nidra or listen to some soft Billy Joel playlist, just something to like chill out at night. It's just so lovely instead of going from life to bed. Like, I like the transition.
Yeah. I feel you. I'm always trying to find the right magical routine that is both sustainable and the right amount supportive for me. And I really try with the routines, but I do have, so in my house, I'm a very sensitive type person, just sensitive to noise and light and a lot of stuff. And, I have 5 kids. I wear noise canceling headphones around my house most of the time, like a lot of the time, especially when my kids are getting crazy. I can still hear, like, you can still just talk to me when I'm wearing them, but it just lowers the volume so that I'm not just like needing, because otherwise, yeah, I get overstimulated just being around my
Dude, that
kids.
is so genius. That is like, you could have a whole business selling headphones for moms. That is so, I've never heard of that. I am so impressed.
Well, it's such a game changer for me as a
Wow.
parent because I used to like not be able to hang, because obviously I would be fine if we're all doing something organized. But with 5 kids, if everybody's just kind of, I love that, like being in the house and it's like the evenings and everybody's kind of doing their own thing and, the toddler's running through, like, I don't know. And the kids are playing and but I would get overstimulated. And so with the noise cancellation, I can hang.
Mm.
Like I can
That
hang
is
in my own
so
house.
gorgeous. I
Yeah.
really love that.
Well, so we started doing this thing too because I struggle with going to sleep at night. Not like falling asleep. I have no problem falling asleep. I have a really hard time letting myself go to sleep.
Ah.
Like I'll just stay up and just like for some reason resist going to sleep. It's very weird. But one thing that helps me that I've been doing, which I love, is I set up red lights in my house. So after dinner, we switch over to red lights only. So it's like dark and
Oh
like
my
low
God.
lighting.
I'm so turned on by that when I have my next home, because right now we're just subletting, I so want to do that. I want to have everything. My daughter has this. Everything switches over to red light at a certain time. Do you have it on a timer?
No, we don't have any like sophisticated. My mom
Oh,
had
okay.
this in her house. She had like all these fancy bulbs that like change lights. I just have like one red light in my office. We have a string of red light. They're like red Christmas lights in our
Cool.
kitchen. And then we have like one red light lamp in the like we
Mm.
just have a few key located. And then like in the bathroom, we always had a red nightlight in there anyway. But in the basement where my kids' bedrooms are, we just like run Christmas lights all the way down through the hallway into the bathrooms. It's just, and we leave it on all the time so they have light, like if they wake up at night and stuff. So it's actually pretty easy. It's just like 3 light or 4 lights
That's
or
so
whatever. I just go around
cool.
the house and turn them on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I just got the blue blocker glasses for at
Hmm.
night, so it's great.
Yeah.
It's fun to try out all of these things and like you see what works for you, but it's all really loving and kind to yourself. And what a better mother you could be if you have these headphones on and you're not overstimulated.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so genius.
Yeah. Well, I have to like do these things to help myself. Like we have a timer that turns our internet off.
Oh, yes, that's another great one.
Yeah, because
Love
if I
it.
don't turn my internet off, I'll just be up on my computer until like 1 in the morning. I'll just like totally get sucked in. But the timer, it'll just turn off
I love
on me
it.
now.
It's
Yeah.
great. Amen. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So those are some of they're not really like routines, but little tricks.
Yeah, well, they're like, it feels like they're structures that you implemented into your life to set the container of your house so everyone knows, like, oh, it's evening, it's nighttime. And then you don't have to think about turning off your internet. I know people who turn it off every night, but then it's another thing to do. This is great. You're like really setting yourself up to win. Like, it just goes off. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it actually started because I was worried about the like EMF, like
Yeah.
just being exposed to it all night. But then I realized like, oh, I should turn it off earlier, like at
Yes.
8.
Is that what you do?
So we had it at 8 for a while. And then I convinced my husband, I'm like really annoying. Like, what, one night I was like having a rough day or whatever. And I was like, just turn it off. I want to watch it. I want to like binge something. And then he turned it off. And then I was like turned off the timer, like disconnected the timer. And then I was just staying up later and later every night. And then when we reinstated it, now it's like 9:15.
Beautiful. I love it. Thereby showing that everything's changeable and adjustable. The only thing we can really count on is change. And it's good if we change with life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so Brenda, you obviously have your podcast, Desire as Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other ways? What other ways can people work with you?
So great. Thank you for asking. So I have my podcast that's on all the directories. I have my website, brendafredericks.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all the socials. I have my deepest work. My one-on-one is Legacy of Love. I do family constellation sessions, which are beautiful turning point sessions. I lead my monthly Koya movement practice, which is so fun. If you check out my Instagram, you'll see like a bunch of videos of me dancing because I just have the best time. I'm practicing right now, letting out the quirkier, sillier, playful side of me. That's like, she just loves to dance in front of a camera. And so I love to dance. That's another gift of my spiritual journey. So I lead that every month. So these are all the ways that people can work with me. And I love it. I'm just really grateful to be able to take everything that I've learned on my spiritual journey and my teaching career and like change that into this career and just help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wonderful. Well, I will put the links in the description, some links so our dear listeners can find you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It was such a joy. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad. I feel like Brenda.
Ah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Penetrate Radio. I have a free guided existential kink practice. If you are somebody who is new to this work, if you're new to EK, if you haven't read the book, if you're just not a reader, or if you need a refresher, you can get this. You can download it right now for free and use it to learn how to do EK and just follow along as a guided practice. It is meant for beginners. So I just want to let you know that that's available and you can find it at the link in the description. Also in the link in the description, you can find more information about our membership Dominion, a field of radical approval. Dominion is less than the cost of a single manicure each month, and it's just a wonderful place to do this work in community. We have seen time and time again that being witnessed and witnessing others in this work is wildly helpful and validating. The last thing I want to mention is that a lot of our guests talk about the coach certification program Penetrate that they went through with myself and Layla. I want to let you know that we are going to be offering that same program again in 2027, and you can find a wait list in that same link if you're interested in getting information about that when it becomes available. And I think this goes without saying, but if you see anyone else offering a program called Penetrate that is also a coach certification program related to this kind of work, that is absolutely not the same program that Layla and I have taught and that the people in this podcast are talking about when they talk about our coach certification program, Penetrate. So I just wanted to make that super clear. Layla and I share a lot of hard-won wisdom through that program. So if we're not the ones teaching it and offering it, then it is definitely not the same program. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Penetrate Radio, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao.